started essentially to solve a problem that I had personally, right? So I wasn't thinking, oh, at first this would be a great business idea, or this is something I could offer to customers. That wasn't the first thought. So I had a spending issue. So I would have
Oh, 1 second, Sammarieo. I think he said intro was missed. Could you go over what you did with the community for us?
oh, yeah man, no problem. So I think the first talk I did with the community was on financial machine learning and AI, I think a year ago, I believe. A year ago, yeah.
Yeah, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, as I was saying, so Every Dollar was developed to solve a big problem that I had, which was a spending problem, right? I would have, for example, $20,000 by the start of the week, and by Friday, I wondering where all that money went. And so I figured, hey, I need to tighten up on my spending. And what I did when I just got my first credit card, I got my first credit card from NCB about, it would be almost a year now since I got my first credit card from NCB. And I was saying, okay, I've heard a lot of persons say you have to know how to manage your money, you have to know how to manage credit, stay on top of your spending, all those stuff. And with my first time, as a first time credit card owner, I was sort of paranoid. Needed a credit card to build credit, but I also didn't want to slip up on my payments and maybe somebody charge my card, or I have some unknown purchases. So I wanted to know where my money was going, where exactly my money was going. And it was at that time I got this genius idea of so I noticed that each time I use my credit card, and when I was using my debit card, I wouldn't pay much attention. But now when I have a credit card, I was paying a lot of attention to the spending that I do. And so each time I would use my credit card, whether it's online or at some point of sale, if I go to KFC or wherever I buy gas, I noticed that the bank would send me a email notification, notifying me that I use my card. So after a while of analyzing those, I would keep track. I always checking my email just to make sure that, okay, yeah, this transaction was done by me, right? And I was like, why not automate this? Because at the end of the day, I'm a computer guy. So why not automate this and make my life easier? I'm very lazy. So I decided that I was going to automate it, and so each time I get a notification, I would move that data to Google Sheets, right? And that Google Sheet is here up until this day, still active. I haven't got rid of it. So each time I get a charge, so each time I spend my card, I'd have a script that extracts that data from my email that the bank sends immediately. And it's almost like a webhook. I'm building like a webhook for myself, right? And those who aren't familiar with webhooks, anybody in the community, it's pretty much a way of some service sending information as an event happens, so in real time. So as soon as I get a notification, I would send that data. The data is in the email format, unstructured data, it's text. So I would write some scripts to what we call the regex to extract and parse all the information. So like the card type that I use, the amount spent, the merchant, the currency, and the status of the transaction, and so on, the time, the date, and I'll put that in a Google Sheet as you're seeing here. All right, so as you can see, these are all the transactions I've done over the past year. And so now, when I had this data, as a data guy, I was like, okay, I could do some analysis. I could see where my money is going. And I soon found out, well, it was no surprise, but all my money was pretty much going to food. Majority of it KFC, right? Because I tend to do a lot of takeout, so I used to spend all my money on KFC. So I realized, okay, I need to cut down on fast food. So I immediately I could see actionable insights just from having the data right in front of me. Right. And it would be time consuming to look at I guess nobody's really looking at the bank statements, the PDF itself, or, going into the app. And then sometimes when you do go into the app, the data is truncated. So you may see up until the last 30 days, but you're not seeing a full view, or you're not getting any analysis from the bank itself. So I wanted that analysis that I could manage my money better. And that's how Every Dollar, or the foundation of Every Dollar, came to be, right? And so, like I said, I started to do some analysis. I used to look at like the merchant, how many time I would go to a particular store, how much, I tend to spend at that store. And so, as you can see, for example, most of these places are food places, right? KFC and so on. All so now I said, well, I feel like a lot of persons would perhaps find value in the same service that I'm offering to myself. And then I got the brilliant idea, well, why not try to build an app, right? And immediately I hit up a good friend of mine, Raheem Wilson, he's on the call here, and say, hey, bro, I have this idea. This is how it works, and I'd love for you to work on it with me. At the time, I was no front-end developer. I couldn't write front-end code to save my life. Well, I could write it, but it wouldn't look good. I'm not a front-end guy, I'm more a back-end guy, back-end and AI. So I said, okay, I'll work on the back-end and you work on the front-end because he's a great front-end developer. So that's when we started developing. So we started about uh last year, August. So coming 2 months, it will be almost a year since we actually wrote our first set of code and pushed the GitHub, right? And then after that, it took us about 4 months. By the time we were working on it every day, every single day, but around 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. in the evening. Because both of us have full-time jobs, so we didn't have the time to work on it full time, right? And so we treated it as a side project. And eventually we actually registered a company and we launched it, and we had users. So that's just the foundation of Every Dollar, how Every Dollar came to be. But the entire ethos or idea behind Every Dollar is that we want to revolutionize personal finance, right? Allow you as a customer, the average person, to be able to track their spend, and most of all, spend less and save more. So that's Every Dollar on a whole. So, like I said, we were established last year, and the aim was to bring personal finance management to the average person. You know, having like a financial advisor, a lot of persons that don't have access to that is expensive. And so we wanted to give that opportunity to the average person who wants to manage their money. And yeah, so we're US registered companies. So registered in the US so that we could leverage Stripe and all of those other payment services. And we're the first in Jamaica to offer a service like this. So the vision is to become the leading personal finance platform globally. It's a huge ambition, but I think that's the vision ideally that we have for Every Dollar. We want to empower users to take better control over their financial health. So there's some problems that we were, inherently solving with Every Dollar. Outside of my problem, there are some obvious problems that the average person had. So the number one thing as developers with Jamaica, especially in fintech, is that we aren't in the fintech landscape in Jamaica hasn't evolved to a point where, if you think, for example, in the US, they have, I can't remember the name of the service that they use. So like you can automatically connect to a bank account and give developers access. They would validate with the bank, and they can build solutions, financial solutions, much faster, much quicker to solve a lot of problems in the US and other places. In Jamaica, not so much. As a matter of fact, Stripe wouldn't even allow a company outside in Jamaica to use a platform. You have to register a company within the US. So that's a big, big barrier when it comes down to data, right? So no local solution. I mentioned high advisory costs to get somebody to, give you insights or help you financially. It's expensive. A lot of people try to use spreadsheets and even try to track your receipts. Your receipts tend to fade away a lot of time. You're trying to put your receipts in a box, and then when you look at it a few weeks after the ink fade away, all those stuff, right? So those are some of the obvious problems that Every Dollar um, was established to solve. So the solution, well, out of every, given that we have what we call a near real-time solution, so as soon as you get a transaction, we fetch that data. You now have the ability to track your budget in real time, right? So if you set a budget for dine and takeout, for example, and you say you want to spend $30,000 for the month on takeout, each time you go to KFC or you go to Island Grill or you wherever, that transaction will pull that automatically, and you can say, okay, I've used 20%. And the next transaction say, okay, I use 30%, and the app keeps you notified at each interval, and then you're able now to say, okay, I'm at 50%. I may want to cut back, or I'm at 80%, and that helps you to stay on par with your finances. So we talk about automatic transaction syncs and then AI-driven insights. So one of the things we implement is the uh the option, or not option, but the availability of transaction classification. So when you go to a merchant, for example, a supermarket or wherever, it classifies a transaction using AI automatically. So it knows if you go to a supermarket versus dine and takeout versus going to the doctor versus doing a transaction at school, so on and so forth. And it automatically classifies that. So now you can view all the transaction categories. You can understand, okay, I'm spending a lot more on gas or transportation versus groceries, for example. And then another few features that we launched in Every Dolla is the receipt management and statement. So if you have a bank statement, you can upload that bank statement and you automatically parse using OCR and LLMs to parse the data from the bank statement to extract that data, as well as receipts. So, like I said, there are drawbacks to having receipts, the physical copies. They tend to fade away, they tend to get lost, and sometimes there are a lot of insights on your receipts. When you go to the supermarket and you buy 5 tuna corned beef, I'm not sure who's buying 5 tuna corned beef, given that it's expensive. But if you buy 5 tuna corned beef, you might, when you look at the receipt, you might say, okay, if you buy three, you get it at a bulk discount. So now you might be more, you know, um, might be intuitive to probably buy six, where you probably get a much discount rather than just buying five. So those are just insights that you can get from a data. All those are on the receipt that you're probably not actually looking at. And when the LLM parses that data, you can get that insight automatically through the app, right? And for the cards management, so what we do is we get the last 4 digits. So each transaction, it doesn't give you full card information, but it does give the last 4 digits. So now you can identify what card you're using, and so you can track the usage on that card, right? So I can set a limit for a card. So, okay, I have a credit card or even a debit card. I can set a limit to say, okay, I want to spend at most 500,000 or at most 100,000 or 50,000 for the month. You can automatically track your credit card or your debit card utilization. You can say, okay, for this month, I've used 80% of my card limit, for example. And you can reconcile this with your credit card statements, and that prepares you to know exactly how much you're spending or you're paying back for your credit card. Yeah, so I just talk about some of the features, the budgeting, AI insights. So we try to use LLMs now to analyze that data and give you real-time insights based on your spending. And so we're able to do that with Every Dollar as well. And we have a transaction view. So if you do a manual transaction, you can always come into the platform and add that transaction manually. Sometimes you may do a transaction with cash, you didn't get any receipt, but you still want to keep track of it. Then by all means, you can come and you can log those transactions into the platform with ease. Talk about cards management just before, and receipts and statements as well. So yeah. In terms of where we're planning to go and the current plans and outlook, the future plans is to expand outside of Jamaica, in the Caribbean on a Caribbean scale, and then launch in North America. In North America, a lot of competition because there are a lot of I've seen a lot of apps quite similar to this to the concept of every dollar in the US. There are a lot of competition, but there in this space there aren't any. So it's a much viable market, a lot of customers. Same thing with LATAM. We want to launch in LATAM as well. So those are just some of the future outlook. But currently, we have launched. We have had over 300 signups since we launched the platform, and this might be a little bit outdated. But in terms of the plans that we plan to achieve in the next few months, one, we're launching the mobile app. A lot of persons have been asking for the mobile app. As a matter of fact, the insights from our usage shows that about 80% of the persons are using their phones to access every dollar rather than on the web. And what we have launched was a web app. So we're working hard on launching the mobile application, which should be out within the next week or two. Raheem is working on that, and we'll have a selected persons, a selected few to test the app in the beta, and then we launch to the public. We want to also roll out a family plan. So, you and a family can budget together, like a couple can budget together and track their finances together. And we're also releasing a B2B offering. So we're working with companies to also track their finances and, automatically sync with QuickBooks. So each time you use a company card or you do any finance, you can automatically reconcile and sync those data with QuickBooks as well. And also to help your taxing and just preparing your transaction for tax purposes as well. We also plan to improve in terms of the AI features and see how best we can also leverage agentic AI into, be more contextual aware of, how you spend the type of transaction and give you actual or better insights per se from the insights that you have now and the data you have. So those are just some of the future outlooks of Every Dollar. And so if you haven't seen any demo yet, I'll just quickly show you a demo of Every Dollar, what it looks like, and just how it works, where you get started, and so on. So once you sign up to the app, it's like $4 monthly, very cheap, less than what I would be spending on a Zinger per day. So imagine being able to manage your funds or your finances for the cost of a Zinger, right? Versus paying a financial advisor. So once you sign up to the app, you would pretty much connect whatever account that the bank sends their notification to. So if this is your Gmail account, then you connect that Gmail account. And what we do, we got the access to Google's API, and that was an extensive process where we had to provide proof and analysis on our platform that states that our app is secure. And because if it's not secure, Google won't give you access to the API, right? So we had to do what we call a tier 2 security assessment, our CASA tier 2 security assessment, which looks at all the possible areas of your app, see if there are any vulnerabilities, and ensure that you have no vulnerabilities there. Look how you manage your data, ensure your data is encrypted, all that stuff. And then they will give you access to the API. So we went through that extensive process, ensure that Apple secure the data is encrypted, because at the end of the day, we're working with transactional data, financial data. We have to ensure that data security is at the forefront of whatever we're doing, because it's a data intensive app. The app works on data, and so we want to make sure that we follow data protection laws and all those stuff. So no need to, so if you have any questions about data security, I hope that answers it, but also, feel free to ask at the end any further questions on that. But once you connect your Google account, then have access to do any integration. So we currently support First Global, Bank of Nova Scotia, NCB, CIBC, JN, VM, and JMB. So if you have any of those banks, then you can come here, click add new integration, you automatically start to fetch all of your transaction data. So if you've been using the bank before and your card, it would fetch all those data, right? And then it will populate this, so have a historical view of all your transactions prior to the time you're integrating. And then once you do that, you now have a dashboard that tells you your historical view of how much you've been spending over time. You can drill down by weekly or monthly or yearly. You can look back in the past and you can see a comparison of how much you spent this week versus how much you spent last week and so on. And you can, if you have a budget, you can come here, you can add your budget. You see a summary breakdown. You see your recent transactions on the right. And like I said, all this is automated, right? So you don't necessarily need to do manual transaction unless you have to. And you can see all the cards that automatically come up here. You can see the usage of those cards. So this is one of my NCB cards. For the month already, I've used 77% of that. So that's just a overview of the dashboard. And here you can see the top spending, for example, per merchant. So how much you've been spending, where the category is, and you can also look back in time. One of my favorite features though is the calendar view, right? So I can see a summary or a heat map of each day and the total amount spent on that day, right? And higher spends would be in red, typical or normal spend would be in green, and around average would be in amber there, but or orange. So for example, look at this on the 14th of May, I can see, okay, I did X amount of transactions. I did 5 transactions, and I can see all the places I did those transactions. All right. I can hover over and I can see the same for any day. I can go back in the past and I can see the same information. So maybe you might need to reconcile and say, wait, um, did I buy this the other day, or how much I spent on whatever product? And you can go back, you can even search for it and you see that information come up. And for persons who want to know exactly where the money going, this section is built exactly for you, right? So you can see a full breakdown of from the total spend to whichever card you use to the merchant type, the category rather, and the merchant type. I can see all my subscriptions, business expenses, and I can drill this down for each account. So maybe I want to say, okay, um, let me see how much I spent on online subscriptions from this card, and I can see all those transactions here. And here we have the transaction table view. If you can see this data in a tabular format, and if you have like a receipt, you can add a receipt to a transaction here. Just drag a picture of the receipt, and you can also filter or search for a transaction. For example, let's say I want to see all the Nord transactions for NordVPN. I can see all of those here. You can go back in the past or filter for a specific bank, so much you've been spending on a specific bank, for example. Or you can come here and you can add a transaction manually. I will make it as intuitive and easy as possible to use. And for budget, we have the budget section, which allows you to create a budget, and you can track that budget and the progress of each items in the budget. So you can come here and you can create a monthly budget. You can start with a suggested one, which if you have any data, you would look at your historical transactions and say, okay, you tend to spend X amount on maybe business expense or dine and take out, and give you an optimal budget. Or you can create a manual budget if you so choose. And then, you're able to now automatically track the progress of your spend and, look back in the past to see, for example, um, how you've been performing in terms of how much you actually budget versus the actual spend, for example. You get this insight to see, okay, all right, I have a net residual income, or how my savings look like, for example. And then we pretty much break this down by card again, similar to what was on the dashboard, but a more granular view. I can see all the transactions on a particular card, the limits. I can come here, I can set a limit. And yeah. And then here for receipts, I can add a receipt and it would parse that receipt, and I can show you what a parsed receipt looks like. So this is just an example of a receipt that I uploaded a few months ago. And I can, view all receipts, or I can view receipts by merchant, or maybe by category, and I can organize them here. So you have your receipts forever. The data is here forever, right? It doesn't fade away. And finally, it's a bank statement. So you can also upload bank statements if you choose. Maybe there's a bank that we don't support. For example, Sagicor isn't yet supported on the platform because they don't send the transaction notifications. So we aren't able to integrate Sagicor, unfortunately. But let's say you still wanted to track your finances, you can download your statements from Sagicor and upload them into the platform. Only drawback is that it won't be real time. But yeah, that's pretty much Every Dollar. And yeah, hope you guys like it. If this is the first time that you're hearing or seeing Every Dollar, I hope this encourages you to track your finances and check out Every Dollar. Yeah. And before we go to the question and answer, I'll just also touch on another initiative or a subsidiary of Everydollar that we're also working on, which is called Rentilio, um, that was mentioned earlier. And the idea for Rentilio is that it's Airbnb, think Airbnb for property management, right? So you know that premium experience that you get when you go on Airbnb, you search into uh rent somewhere for a short stay. Imagine if you had that premium experience when you are trying to find an apartment or a home or so on. And that's what Rental is trying to bring, right? Making rental management or property management premium and easy. So you can pay your rent with your credit card. So tying back with Everydollar, now imagine being able to go into Everydollar or pay your rent, or on a platform and pay your rent with your credit card. You may ask, why would I want to pay my rent with my credit card? Well, some of the advantages that you have a huge sum of funds flowing out of your account each month. Some persons are paying over $100,000 for rent, right? If you have a credit card, you would get points and cashback each time you do a large transaction. When you're doing bank transfer, you're not seeing back that money. It's just going there, you're not benefiting from it, right? And maybe you don't have the cash yet to pay for your rent, but you have a credit card, so you can use credit. And so Rentilio is giving you that opportunity. And so we are launching the early access to property managers and landlords. So if you know a property manager or a landlord, feel free to share the platform, encourage them to sign up to our early access program, and they can also check it out. Or if you know a realtor, you can share the platform with your realtor. So let me log out and show you just a quick view of what the platform looks like. Let me log out. Right. And yeah, so this is what it looks like. I'll just turn on the demo data so you can see a better view, right? So for a landlord, they could see total revenue because they're able to access or accept rent, whether from bank transfers or debit or credit card, number of properties that they have, vacant properties, number of tenants, recent payments, maintenance requests. So if you have an issue with your plumbing, you can just create a maintenance request right through the app, and they're able to track that, and you're able to track it as well, and so on. Another cool feature we're also launching recently is being able to view an apartment virtually. So using VR. So imagine you're able to view your next apartment from your couch, going through each room, going to the bathroom, going to the living room, as if you're in the actual apartment. And just so those are some of the features that we're launching with Everydollar, right? Just changing up the space, the property management or real estate space in Jamaica. Yeah, so this is Rentilio. So if you like what you see, definitely encourage you to share it with somebody you think would love to take advantage of this. But yeah, so the question and answer segment, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot.
All right, so you can check the chat and go through the questions. Also, if anybody has a verbal question, you can raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak.
Okay, let me see where to start. Good day. How do you access the app? Okay, so the app is not on the Play Store yet. It's dropping soon, but there is a web app that you can visit. It's everydollar.tech, everydollar without the R. That tech. Let me see if I can the link. If you see my screen, you just come here, everydollar.tech. But sooner or later, within the next 2 weeks, you'll see the app on the App Store for sure. How is feedback from users so far? A lot of users, like most person, they love the UI, they love the data. When it just launched, we launched at about $24 per month for the pricing. And a lot of persons said that was expensive because again, you're dealing with the Jamaican market, so you have to figure out how to adapt to pricing and what persons are willing to pay for. So we reduced that to $4 and $11. So that's just the only feedback. That's the only negative feedback I've heard. It's just surprising when it just launched. But otherwise, positive feedback. Is an option to include cash transactions as well. Yes, you can add manual transaction, and if you have a receipt, you can add the receipt to it as well. Is every bank, is every Jamaican bank available on the platform? The major ones are the only ones that aren't, and Sagicor I can think of, but Scotia, First Global, JN, NCB, JMB, VM, CIBC. I think those are the major banks. Any plans to have an AI bot? Oh, yes, it's actually in the platform. So we do have an AI bot that you can talk to. But we want to improve this. There are a lot of areas for improvement now that we have a lot more support for agentic AI and MCPs. Then, yeah, we want to improve that aspect. Was a tech stack and hosting. So the backend was implemented by me. I use Fast API for the backend. The front end, Raheem works on that. Don't know if you want to chime in, but I think he used Next.js and Tailwind CSS for the front end. And hosting render. So if you want to host a backend platform really quickly, definitely check out Render. It's been one of the most intuitive platforms from just connecting your GitHub repo. And you can spin up, and it has auto scaling, all those stuff supported. So check out Render and Vercel for your front end, your React app, your Next.js as well. And for database, Postgres, NeonDB, Supabase, those are some good databases you can check out. Have a lot of free options as well. How did you come up with the name Every Dollar? So I was just trying so I figured, okay, what are some names that would resonate with Jamaican, given that we're targeting Jamaican market? And I think Every Dollar was one of them. But when I researched, I saw Every Dollar by Dave Ramsey being one. Dollar, every dollar, right? So that was there already. So I could use that. So I was like, okay, I'll drop the R and make it more Jamaican, every dollar. I know you guys leverage AI and the solution offered. Do you also use AI to help with the development process? If it's just a team of two, yes, 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 yes. Cursor for sure. We use Cursor to help significantly speed up the development process. And how I tend to work when I'm working on a project, especially a new project. So I tend to write out all the possible requirements that I have. I was telling somebody this today because they have an app that they want to launch and they're not sure where to start. And I was giving them the same advice, all the possible requirements and features that you can think of, exactly how you think the app should work. Write it out on a Google Sheet or somewhere, and then put it in the chat GPT and say, okay, generate a product requirement document or a software requirement document for this app idea. And it's going to give you, all the possible tech stacks that you can use, all the features and structure it. And then once you have that, then, you have the milestones that you need to accomplish. And then you can say, okay, you can write the cursor rules for the backend. So you split it into backend and front end, and then you write the cursor rules. If you're using cursor, for example, you write your cursor rules so that it sticks with whatever you're trying to achieve. And it stays on par with your product requirements, so all the features that you want and so on. So we tend to do that. Nathan,
All right, Nathan, let me know if you can unmute yourself. No, if not,
Yeah,
okay.
man. Good now. Thanks. I was writing this question, but I realized it was going to take me a little bit longer. Big up again, Sammarieo. My
summary,
apologies.
no problem.
Sammarieo and Rahim. So my question, this one is because I know that you said it kind of started as you solving a personal problem, and then along the way it kind of morphed into, okay, building this thing that you can now sell to people. My question is, how did you move past, what was the transition like moving from getting a working MVP for yourself to now realizing, okay, I want to be able to market this to other persons and then, needing to now put a lot of fit and finish on it to make it ready for mass market?
Oh, well, I think as a so we had the MVP for me was the Google Sheets, to be honest. Right? So from what I saw in Google Sheets, I automatically started thinking from a software perspective. So that transition wasn't a problem. Being, as a software developer, I can say, all right, this is what it would look like. But similar to what I said just now in terms of planning out the project, we plan out the project, write all the requirements and set up the project in such a way that it would be scalable from the start. So any software that I'm developing, the first thing I think about is scalability. Because I'm saying, well, what if this software takes off? Because that's always the goal, right? What if this software takes off? Will it break when I get 1,000 users or 100 users? So I always think scalability. And so I tend to develop any software around that. So that wasn't a problem in terms of transitioning from MVP to prototype. And we had, friends, close family members, friends test it out first. And then after we said, all right, if it's working, positive feedback, then we did a soft launch and then we actually launched it to the public.
All right, thanks for that. And a quick little follow-up might be for either you or Rahim. But say I've done similar things in terms of building a little MVP for myself. Things that are, clear-cut bare bones, especially on the UI front, because I definitely more front-end developer than back. I can, you give me something nice to make, I'll make it, but I don't, the UI designing part doesn't come like first hand for me. And so I am in a process now of kind of trying to, put some fit and finish on my little MVP as friends and family start to use something I've built. I wanted to know for you guys, well, or Rahim, was the design process, completely on you? Did you get help from that, outside help or the help of AI for the UI aspect of it?
Yeah, man, Ryan is definitely the guy to answer that question. I think it's probably at work though. It's probably still at work.
Oh, well,
But I think I can answer for him. So,
hmm.
you're familiar with V0, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. So you can, if you have an idea, you can mock it up in V0. So whether it's a landing page, or some concept that you have, you just mock it up in V0. Or what I tend to do, go on Figma or Dribble. I think it's Dribble with those designs.
Yeah, dribble.
Right, right. I get some ideas and you just throw it into V0, tell it to customize it. So this is, for example, this login screen. Maybe I want to, steal this login design. I'll just copy the image, put it into V0 and say, write the code for this. And then I can, manually prompt it to change whatever or add a logo. So that's how I think we did a lot of, Ryan would have the front end experience, so he would approach it much differently. But for Rentilio, for example, that's how I did the implementation for Rentilio. Because Raheem was well, he still is working on the mobile app, so he didn't have a lot of time to work with me on Rentilio. So I decided, all right, the backend is finished. I'll just take the initiative to work on the front end, and that's how I approach it. So V0 is my best friend, and all these other design concepts, Figma and so on. And if you have the link, you can paste the link in V0, and it does wonders.
All right, thanks. I have one last question, then I'll give up the mic. But this one is about the whole business of you guys getting registered in the States for payments. I know there's been an ongoing conversation in the community just about like the local offerings and whatever. So I wanted to know how easy or hard that process was for you guys to get set up in the States and any
Yeah,
advice
it,
around
it,
it.
it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. Believe me, like, it might sound scary, it might sound like a lot of work, but when you start to do it, and that's the thing with getting started with doing whatever, when you start doing it, you realize after each step, it tends to start running, right? So what we did, I know I heard of Stripe Atlas from just doing some search. I was just researching how to register a company in the US, how to accept Stripe payments, and then or maybe I was talking about it and I was on social media on Instagram and I saw an ad because they tend to listen to you when you talk about stuff. So I saw ad and then I just click on it and I learned about Stripe Atlas and realized it's rated by a lot of developers. So I checked it out, started the process. It was I think $500, 500 US to register the company, and they would do everything for you. So setting up the company, getting you the tax ID, which is what they call it a EIN, which is pretty much a TRN for the company. And then once you have your EIN, so you get back your EIN within 3 weeks of submitting the application. And then once you have your EIN, you can register a bank. You can register with a bank. The two main ones, I can't remember the other one, but the one that we use is called Mercury Bank. And there's another one I can't remember. But there are two main ones that work with startups. You can quickly register, set up your account. And yeah, it was pretty easy. The scary part though is when it comes down to tax. And that's another thing. So, how it works, and not giving tax advice, but how it works is once you register a company in the US and you're not operating or receiving funds in the US, what they call the US trader business, then if you're not getting funds from the US, then you typically don't pay tax in the US. But once you start accepting funds or doing business in the US, then you pay US income tax. So that's a little gray area. But still you have to file tax. And if you miss or mess up a tax report, they'll fine you $25,000, which is scary. When I heard that, I was like, okay, all right, that not sound so good. But that's something to keep in mind. Just, following the regulations of the IRS, you have to do all of those stuff. You have to set up what they call the FinCEN, which is a report that you have to, give on your company, all of those. And then when you're registering, you have to think about the state too, because each state offer different favors to persons that are registering the company. So typically, the best place to register a company would be in Delaware, where you don't pay state tax. You just charge an annual fee, which is around $200 per year. So if you're making $1 million, it's still $200 per year to you have to pay to Delaware for their state tax per se.
All right, yeah, man, that answers it well. Thank you so much. And again, congrats to you guys on a successful launch.
Yeah, man, respect, respect. I see Rhyme drop a message in the chat.
Yeah, man, aside. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right, I'm guessing that's it for the question. Did you answer every question in the chat, Sammarieo?
I believe so, yes. Oh, there's one question. What feature additions are you aiming for next? So family plan. So after the mobile app, family plan, goal setting, so you can create and track your personal goals. If you want to go on a cruise next year, you can save towards that or track in your progress saving towards that. The B2B offerings for companies, and just improving the AI aspect of the platform in terms of the chatbot. I text to parse NCB statement once. Are you doing something similar to extract multiple vendors or Yes, document intelligence. So we use Google Document AI, which is easy to set up. You just pretty much pass in a sample document, and you can tag the items, tag the line items, and it can intelligently detect the line items for you and extract it. So check out Google Document AI. Great for documents.
All right. Yes. I guess that's it for the questions. I'm not seeing any hands here. Let me check groups. Not seeing anything online either. So let me guess. Last thing on your roadmap here is continuous innovation. All right. So Sammarieo, thank you for the presentation. I am gonna re-share my screen.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, great. Here is some bigger for everyone. All right. Yes, so as you guys know, the community does sell community t-shirts. You can get yours by going to shopyasa.com. That's one way you can, get some swag and some other items that we're dealing with. Upcoming events. So as you know, we put out a poster for a mentorship event, well, for mentorship some 2 or so weeks ago. Right? We've been getting some interesting applications so far. And there's going to be a physical meeting for that mentorship event where you can check out on the poster. We have our open mic sessions, community outreach, career days, demo days, and workshop events. So definitely look out for those when they're announced. Re-plug in the mentorship. Oh, oh. Yeah, the mentorship poster here. We've already had our open discussion/questions. So for those of you who haven't signed up yet, you can send your resumes to info@caribbean.dev. The deadline is June 1st, so you still have some time. Yeah, you get paired with local international mentors. The physical event will be the 28th of June. All right. These are all numbers. I'm sure the community has grown even further now, but we are on Meetup. And if you know anybody interested in tech, anybody who wants to be a part of the community, who wants to see these demo days, you can, tell them about the community, share it with them, and I'm sure they'll benefit from it. All right, thank you all for attending, and this concludes our presentation. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, take care.